reality is that there's like just fantastically qualified people all over the world. Well, you can achieve that with global talent at a fraction of the cost. The workshops that Sagan puts on a regular basis have been really useful.
Hey, Rich. Really great to have you here. Could you please introduce yourself? Talk a little bit about your business and the customers that you serve.
Sure. My name is Rich Jordan. I'm the CEO of Strongpoint Services. We're a holding company. We have two brands that we own and operate in the HVAC, plumbing, and electrical space, particularly in the residential sector. So we service homeowners every day, service, repair, replacement of their existing systems.
How does this work out with global hiring? I mean, did you guys have any challenges hiring global talent? Did you do it before joining Sagan? So what's your story with hiring globally?
Sure. So we've had global talent for a little while, about 3 years. Primarily for a long time, it was strictly a couple, some CSRs that we had that helped us, answer the phones, make sure we weren't missing calls and stuff like that. And that was really the extent of like how we leveraged global talent for a long time. And one of the tough things is, we're growing rapidly, and that puts a lot of pressure, particularly on our on-site like US staff, to wear multiple hats, to be sort of like generalists, to do a lot of things that we may not be qualified to do. Particularly myself, like kind of leaders at the top, having to do a lot of things to cover gaps. So we've begun leveraging global talent to really like bring in specialists in particular areas like finance, specific areas of operations, marketing, things like that. So that's been really helpful to just kind of take the burden off of our on-site US staff and frankly just do a better job in some of those specific areas. I'm not qualified as the owner to be a financial controller and an SEO specialist and things like that, and I can bring in talented people from other countries to do those roles, and that's been really impactful for us.
Since you've already been hiring globally for 3 years, so what made you decide like to join Sagan Passport? Why did you start hiring globally with us?
Well, I think oftentimes hiring globally can be a friction-filled experience. For a while we were hiring direct. So, like we were putting out the postings on onlinejobs.ph, getting a lot of inbound for that, having to screen all those people, interview them, come up with the job postings and all that stuff. So it just basically what that meant is we just hired less frequently. So even using an agency, there's friction in that too, right? So you got to reach out to the agency, you got to figure out what roles you want, compensation. Even still, they're doing some screening for you essentially, and there's a cost associated with that as well. So the Sagan model with the subscription model and the hires included on an annual basis and a bunch of the other benefits, which I think when we joined Sagan we didn't really even appreciate the other benefits that Sagan brings, have made it, for us, it's just a superior model. We're really happy with it.
Yeah, and can you maybe describe your experience a little bit with our hiring process? Like what made it like stand out from maybe other services or yeah, again, in comparison to what you used to do before, like yourself and the team.
At least in my opinion, there's sort of like two buckets of like the Sagan hiring process or two paths you can take with the Sagan process. There's, the headhunted path, right? So we get our allocation of like headhunted hires every year. And then there's the talent pool. And I think like we've made really good use of the talent pool and also the headhunted hires. So for example, like we recently hired our first controller, and for us, like that was like a very high impact, very important role that we were looking to fill. So we went the headhunted route with Sagan for that, right? So you guys, however you do it, you searched and vetted and put up a handful of candidates for us. We interviewed them and we selected one. That takes a couple weeks, but we got some very strong candidates, and it was actually difficult to select the one that we wanted, frankly. But then for some of the call them like more entry level roles, we were able to go to the talent pool, which you guys fill with. My understanding is that you fill that with folks that were quality candidates that weren't selected in headhunting processes. So we can go in that talent pool and we can basically like pull people straight out of the talent pool. So like there was one instance where like on a Tuesday afternoon, we decided we wanted to fill a role. We went into the talent pool, saw somebody that looked like a fit. We interviewed them the next morning. We sent them an email. We interviewed them the next morning. They were hired. They started on Thursday. Yeah, so that's been really cool. And for us, like, we're generally like a very fast moving company. So for us, like, that's awesome. It's exactly what we need. And like that actually filled a critical gap for us at a critical time. So really useful.
Can you maybe share like a specific success story or like some positive outcome from hiring through Sagan, like these CSRs or like the financial controller or the roles that you've already filled, like the new team members that you work with, like anything you've seen some change like in the business in terms of like the business impact? How do you see that in your company?
Yeah, we've hired a couple CSRs and they've worked out. So actually every single Sagan hire we've made, and I think we've made 6 now total, is doing well.
Yeah. Okay.
And doing well through the onboarding process and everything. We've hired 3 CSRs to have started. One starts next week. But I think, one of the interesting use cases for us are these sort of like specialist roles that we've hired. So two separate instances, similar stories, 2 separate instances in our business. In one case, we had a warehouse. We had basically a purchasing coordinator in the warehouse, US, great guy, hard worker. We've doubled in size at this location in New Hampshire over the last few months, and he's been just drowning in purchase orders. He's backlogged. He's unable to do his job to the level that he wants. He's stressed out, under a lot of pressure. And so to kind of alleviate that for him, we basically hired this essentially like a warehouse operations specialist. It was a guy with like a background in drop shipping and logistics. And that guy now and he's out of the Philippines. That guy kind of works alongside him and does a lot of the administration behind the purchasing and warehousing and purchase order receiving and all that stuff. And has taken a lot of the like stress and pressure and tedious admin off of that guy that we have here in the warehouse. That was the one that we hired in 2 days. It's worked out great. Another example, very similar. We had an install coordinator, a woman here in the office in the US, who, again, just like getting kind of crushed under the volume of work, very stressed out, ultimately ended up leaving the role and kind of like left. Basically, like, we're kind of left in the lurch, having to fill like a pretty critical role to keep our install crews moving. And our install crews generate 2/3 of our revenue. It's very important that they stay on the road. So, but what we realized in her kind of exit interview is that the pressure that she was under was mostly due to the fact that she was also responsible for coordinating and managing the permit process with all the municipalities, equipment registrations after the job, and so all this administration that she had to do. And it just really took up a lot of time, and she didn't have enough time in the day. So what we were able to do is we actually hired an install coordinator overseas through Sagan. That was South Africa. And then we hired a permits and rebates clerk. So someone just to do the permits and the rebates and the registrations and the warranties part of the install coordinator role. So we split the role in 2, and that's worked great. So now both of those people aren't under like a ton of workload pressure, and we're getting a better result. And I think even both of them together came in less than that original US employee. So it's been really helpful for us.
So what would you tell a business owner, especially in something that you do, which is probably not really associated with global talent? What would you tell a business owner who was on the fence about hiring global talent?
I think a lot of business owners, and I think this has probably been true of myself, 2 years ago, think like they can only hire global talent for low skilled, just like push the button, pull the lever kind of work. And the reality is that there's like just fantastically qualified people all over the world. Well, you can achieve that with global talent at a fraction of the cost. Get really, really qualified people that are like very smart, been doing this a long time, can bring a lot of best practices to the job. And it's just way more accessible than I think I realized. Like they don't all have to be CSRs. They don't all have to be virtual assistants. Like there's just a lot of talent out there in the world. So.
And would you recommend Sagan to do that? And if yes, then why would you recommend us?
It's very easy. The like community and resources that come along with Sagan. So you got a bunch of business owners and leaders in like the Sagan community that are all kind of kicking around best practices around global talent. It's also just this, it's not just global talent either. It's just like it's leverage in general. So it's AI, it's automation, it's a lot of the conversations around that. It's the workshops that Sagan puts on a regular basis have been really useful for me, but also useful for my team. Something that I think I took for granted is that, as a business owner, like I, read a lot of newsletters, listen to a lot of podcasts, read a lot of books, and kind of like have an understanding of like what's possible and what's available and what other people are doing and things like that. My team doesn't necessarily like just like swim in those waters on a regular basis. So like when I see, last week there was a workshop on automation and AI, and I just let a couple of my team members know about it. Strongpoint had, like 5 people in that workshop. Now they all start to understand like what tools are available, what could we be doing better, and what's available. So it's not just from the top being pushed down. And it's like, oh, Rich is like so obsessed with AI and automation. It's like, no, like this stuff is out there. Other people are doing it. And now like they're bubbling up, good ideas from lower on the org chart, which I think is just really, really useful and impactful. So that's been cool to be able to tie the team into some of that content, and really get their gears turning on what's possible.
And the last question I want to ask you, so where do you see your business in the next 6 to 12 months as a Sagan Password member?
We've hired 6 international folks via Sagan just in the past couple of months, or even like 2 months. And I wouldn't be surprised if we hire another 6 in the next 6 months. Yeah, like I said, it's just, our eyes continue to be open to like what we could do at placing specialists in specialty roles within the company that we otherwise wouldn't be able to afford. And what that can do to like just push the organization forward. We see Sagan as a great value for us. And I mean, obviously it's a better value the more you utilize it. And I think we're getting great utilization out of it. Like I mentioned, there's all the resources and community behind it. And for us, it's just a no-brainer. I think I've said to multiple people, like I couldn't be a bigger fan of Sagan. I think it's a great value, and it's a great great value. And yeah, I don't have good copywriting for that, but yeah, we're very happy.